Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to From the Stands College Football Game Day Show. My name is Brian. I was absent last week, and we had a great dual host and guest situation here from my boys Andy Hopper and Tom Scavetta. Thank you, boys, so much. It was a fantastic show, as I'm sure the viewers would agree. But we are in Week 12 now. I am back on this side of the Atlantic, the better side of the Atlantic here, and we're going to jump right into our weekly recap for Week 11's action. You boys are going to have to fill me in because they don't play this sport, this type of football over there. Their ball is round, and there is not as much brutal hits to see. So, Andy, we'll start with you. Let me know what you're watching. Fill me in on this Week 11 action that I so dearly missed.
I mean, the big one for me was Illinois squeaking by Indiana in overtime. Absolutely no defense played in this game on either side. John Paddock, the backup quarterback, 507 yards through the air, I believe 4 touchdowns. Isaiah Williams, 9 catches, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime. Reggie Love comes back his first week. He goes for, I think, like 140 yards on the ground and a score. So it was insane. Casey Washington, I'm going to give him a shout out. He had 99 yards and a touchdown. He's a senior, and it's actually his first receiving touchdown of his career. So shout out to him. Finally popped the cherry. And then if he would have gotten 1 more yard, they would have had 3 100-yard receivers. Pat Bryant had a score and like 130 yards too. So awesome game. Very, very thrilling. Also agonizing at the same time. A big game against Iowa this week. But that was the big one for me. I'll keep it short and let Tom fill you in.
All right, Tom, hit us with all the action that you were watching for Week 11.
You missed a lot, Brian. So Georgia blew out 52-17, 2 versus 9 game. Milton went off for 127 yards, 2 tutties. Michigan over Penn State, a classic Big Ten game. Neither quarterback threw for over 70 yards. I mean, not sure if I'd expect that in the Big Ten East, but the Big Ten West for sure. But neither Drew Aller or J.J. McCarthy threw for over 70 yards. Michael Penix Jr. continues to improve his Heisman standing. 35-28 win over Utah. He goes for over 330 yards. Missouri blowing the smoke out of Tennessee. Cody Schrader over 200 yards on the ground and a score. And finally, Brian, your team, which ruined Andy's parlay, my parlay, and possibly Noah's. I forget what he put. Frickin' Harvey has 206 yards, 3 touchdowns. You beat the Cowboys 45-3. Brian, you can never hold this against Plumlee. As long as he is quarterback of UCF, you can never hold this against him. He is good when he wants to be good. And you can beat anybody in this conference with him at quarterback.
I can't believe we had no idea that they were wearing the space uniforms.
I know. The second that was brought up, I was like, what a dumb thing to bet against.
I said it on the show last week. I said it every time Brian bets against UCF, they fuck it up. So, and boy, did they.
Yeah. I just can't. I feel like when I bet with them, they lose. And when I bet against them, right. I think I'm going to put a self-imposed ban, permanent ban on betting my own team there because I just can't get it right. Or maybe I'll just reverse psychology it, say that they're gonna lose the game, secretly bet them to win, and then they keep blowing out ranked Big 12 opponents here. Yeah, for me, like I said, I didn't get to see much anything, but I did get to obviously review the scoreboard. The UGA blowing out Ole Miss, that probably would have been my surprise pick if I was on the show last week. I want Georgia taken off their pedestal. I'm sure Noah was not smug about it, but we all know he's just sitting there lapping up all these wins, all these W's, as Georgia's on track to possibly their 3rd straight national title after, a 30-plus year no championship run that they had there. And then the other games, the one that I mentioned when we were going over games, Tom, that you wanted to put on the card possibly was the FSU-Miami one. That one, Miami has been up and down, but anytime those two teams play, that is a solid rivalry, and they scared FSU. They're hanging on there at number 4 in the rankings, but yeah, 27-20, Miami taking them to the brink. That was an interesting matchup as well. But that will bring us into our first segment here. It is our only topical segment of the week. It is Bye-Bye Buyout. Yes, we are both referencing a little bit of late 1990s In Sync and the Jimbo Fisher buyout that has happened. Obviously, the big news of the week, Texas A&M has officially bought out head coach Jimbo Fisher. They want him gone. I think the writing was already on the wall almost last season, I feel like. But it is now official. They decided this is not too much money for them to just throw at the man to walk away. So I'll start with you, Andy, and then go to you, Tom. We're going to discuss just very quickly the buyout, as I'm sure everyone has heard the news by now. And then we're going to jump into a fun little segment. I want everyone here to pick two of anything that you can dream up, anything you can imagine in your childlike wonderment. Two things that you would buy out if you were a group of boosters and had an unlimited pot of money like they all seem to. So just starting with the Jimbo Fisher news, Andy, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this buyout right here?
Insane what this Texas A&M oil money will do for you. So $77.6 million. It's the second largest buyout of all the coaches currently. Well, he's not employed anymore, but like currently employed. Kirby Smart being the largest with a $92.6 million buyout. So they, in the short term, they owe him, two checks in the span of 4 months. The first due within 60 days of contract termination would be for $19.3 million. How the hell are we? The second due within 120 days of termination would be the first of 8 annual payments for the rest of the contract, $7.2 million. So in total, the Aggies owe Fisher $26.6 million by March 11th, 2024. And then from there, the rest will be paid out annually in installments of $7.2 million from 2025 until 2023. So he is being paid $77.6 million over the next 8 years to not coach football. Insane. But also, like, Texas A&M, let's not act like there's some perennial fucking power.
Right.
They're not. They just buy their players with NIL, and then they get to College Station and they're like, oh, fuck, this sucks. And they leave. That big recruiting class they had, like, how many of those guys did they retain? And, like, how many of those dudes are actually still on the team contributing? I don't know, but honestly, good for Jimbo Fisher. Like, if I was in his shoes and they said, yeah, we're going to pay you this to leave. All right, what door do you want me to leave out of? Like, get me the fuck out of here. Sure, where do I sign?
Which I think that quote was almost, didn't Orgeron say almost the exact same thing?
That's exactly what Orgeron said, to quote my Lord and Savior Ed Orgeron.
Yeah, when there's that much money on the line, I mean, you could pay me enough to leave, I guess, is the way to put that, because this is just insane piles of money we're talking about here. Tom, what are your thoughts here on the buyout of Jimbo Fisher?
Well, to Andy's money total there, 77.5+ million. That's 4 times more than any other coach has gotten via the buyout. They decided to give him this glorious 10-year contract extension in 2021 because they beat freaking Alabama in October. So that's how much, I guess, a win against Alabama can get you. Yeah, they A&M is hot garbage. They are not good. They can recruit. They can't retain. And realistically speaking, they had one good game last year. I forget who they were playing. They looked good. They're the type of team, they can compete, but they won't finish. They never finish. And when a team can't finish, that's bad news for a coaching staff.
Hell yeah.
So Jimbo Fisher may get some fishing in there next week with him being out as the A&M head coach. And you have to imagine a head coach who has really taken the nation by storm this year might possibly be getting a phone call.
Ooh, okay. Very ominous, the way you left that. Yeah. For me...
Oh.
Yep, go ahead.
Did you see the Jamie Chadwell tweet?
No.
I did not.
So he is currently the head coach at Liberty, and they tweeted out like a promo for some event or maybe like his radio show or something. And he quoted the tweet, said, looking forward to seeing everybody there. He had his location on. That location said Starkville, Mississippi. So
what?
Caught red-handed.
Starkville, Mississippi is where Mississippi State is. They just fired their head coach, Zach Arnett. So he's already on campus interviewing for the job. He was kind of getting lit up on Twitter for that. So I did think that was funny, but Tom, I know where you're going with that. His statement about that was funny as fuck too. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, that is a lesson to everyone to turn off your location tags. But I'm sure he's looking at this and thinking he's missed out on the fact that he's not getting any buyout money, and Jimbo Fisher just walking into the sunset with millions in his pockets. But yeah, quickly
Right.
for me, the man is getting, what did you say, like $20-some million in the next 120 days to not coach football. This
Mhm.
contract was hot garbage from the very beginning. You shouldn't offer anyone a 10-year contract outside of maybe Nick Saban earlier this decade. And I think maybe if Georgia three-peats this year, I think you could offer Kirby Smart a 10-year contract because even if it doesn't work, the man just brought you 3 straight national championships. That's worth it, even if you have to buy him out eventually. But yeah, I don't understand. Like I said, we kind of saw this coming last year. Just the team looked god awful, despite the fact that they're bringing in all these 5 stars with their NIL money. And I mean, you could have got rid of them last year and spent, I mean, what, 10 more million? I don't know how those decisions go down in the back boardrooms of the NIL boosters, but he's gone now. I don't know where he even gets a job after this because he's been almost a bit of a snake oil salesman. His one success, big success recently was having Jameis, launch the ball as far as he could, and that did get him a national championship at FSU, but did not work out the years after that, and did not work out at Texas A&M. So goodbye, Jimbo. You have been bought out. And that will wrap up our weekly segment here. Oh, sorry, I should do the fun part of the segment real quickly. So if you could buy out the 2 of anything you want here with booster money, Andy, I'll start with you. What are your picks?
So I went a little different here. So I would buy out Marvin Harrison Jr. I want to do whatever it takes to get
Like it?
him to play at Illinois. He's got 59 catches, 1,063 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's averaging 18 yards per catch. I mean, I guess I'll actually see if I can just buy him out to not play and just come to the Bears. Really hoping they draft him. And then secondly, this one is an obscure one. I want to buy the rights to this bowl game.
Okay.
The Tobacco Bowl. Okay, I want Big Tobacco to buy the rights to this game. Maybe we rebrand it as like the Jewel Bowl or one of those fucking dumb vapes everybody uses these days. But so the Tobacco Bowl or the Tobacco Festival Bowl was a college football bowl game that was held in Richmond, Virginia from 1949 to 1982. It was not a postseason bowl game, so it sounds like it was like a preseason type deal. But I want to bring it back because that would be hilarious. We need more funny bowl names. I'm always a fan of that. So it was regional teams from Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. I can work with that. Let's make it happen, baby. For their gift bags, for their gift bags, for the bowl game, they're getting the carton of cigarettes and what and what the vape of their choice. But yeah, those were my 2. I wanted to keep it pretty light with that one.
I love it. 1949 to 1982 Virginia just screams big tobacco country. So,
Yeah.
but you know what? Now that you brought that up, the way that they had that set up, they need to bring that concept from college basketball to college football, where you bring like 4 teams into the same region and they play a little mini tournament style. That would be awesome. I don't know why they do that. I guess because you can only play 1 game a week, whereas basketball, you can do like every 2 or 3 days.
Right.
But yeah, that'd be awesome if they could somehow pull that off. Tommy, give me the 2 of anything that you would buy out if you were just a Richie Rich booster club.
Ooh. I'd probably buy out a wide receiver for Sam Hartman and like rewind to the very beginning of the season because that man has nobody to throw to. I'm going a little different here from Andy, but yeah, I want to help my team out. A lot of these times boosters are gone wrong, but I would love to get some sort of like NIL there and get him, even if it's just for 1 season. I'd like to make the college football playoff and possibly win a national title. And unfortunately, it was not possible this year for Sam Hartman and company. When you're throwing to a really good tight end who is now out for the season and no receivers. So there you go. I would love to boost our offense. Obvious one. Really bad one, too, by the way. Second, let's see. I would take, what was that minor league team called? The Iowa Barnstormers. Do you remember them? Or, like Arena Football, maybe? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Kirk Ferentz should be coaching at this point of his career. Yeah, he should be bought out from Iowa. He's been the coach since what, 1998? I think Andy and I were in diapers. Brian, you were pretty young as well. Yeah, this is not good. Yeah, I would just he's got to be replaced, and yeah, those are my two boosters.
I love it. So you're helping your team out, and you're also shipping Ferentz as far away from Iowa. That's very kind of you to the fans of Iowa Hawkeyes football to get rid of him
Holy shit,
for that offense. For me, I'm also doing one that I'm going to give as a general gift to any college football team, and one also for my personal team. Andy and Tommy went with wide receivers. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams for the final year because he has already mentioned that he could stay because he does not like the teams that might be drafting him this year. So he's basically verbally committed to saying, "Hey, offer me what you want. I could very well could stay for another year." I think, like Tom's team, Notre Dame has done with Sam Hartman. There's a lot of good teams out there that just need a solid quarterback. USC, that defense, it's not working. Caleb Williams can't do everything from a quarterback position. So I think if you're an NIL group at a team that just really needs a QB to launch that success towards the playoff, buy out Caleb Williams. And then secondly, my guilty pleasure here, if I am a UCF booster group, I am buying out the trademark rights to the UCF Citronaut, and I am forcing the school to use it as the new permanent mascot from here on out. The Knights are dead. The Citronauts are back with their blue uniforms, the little orange guy mascot as well. Keep the space uniforms when you want them, because as the Citronauts, we are undefeated. Andy brought it up earlier. We just cannot lose. So that just brings us multiple undefeated seasons in a row because we just do not lose as the Citronauts. That is my greedy one there for my UCF. And that will wrap up the segment and bring us into our weekly parlay party. As always, 2 minimum requirements. Got to be 4 picks. Got to be plus 1,000 payout. Andy, we'll start with you. Walk us through your picks for this week.
So we are going Arizona money line. They are hosting Utah. I do not trust Utah. They are too up and down. Arizona has won 4 straight. They are ranked. I expect the Wildcats to win this game. Georgia minus 10.5 at Tennessee. They are easily 10.5 points better than Tennessee. I think that's all I have to say about that one. And then my third pick will be Colorado plus 4.5 at Washington State. These are 2 teams that are really looking for a win. But I mean, if you've paid attention to Washington State at all the past 6 weeks now, after starting 4-0 and feeling really good about themselves, having a couple decent wins there, they have just absolutely fallen off the face of the earth. I know Colorado in a similar situation. They're 4-6 as well after a super hot start for them. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. But give me Colorado here. Give me the Buffs. They've been super close the past couple weeks to actually breaking through and winning. And I don't need them to win. I just need them to cover 4.5, keep it within a field goal. I still really like Cam Ward, but I think this Washington State team may have just be checked out at this point, to be honest with you, with the current streak they're on. So give me the Buffaloes, and then my last pick is over 71.5. Georgia State at LSU. I expect LSU to score a lot, and Georgia State to score maybe 10 points, 7 points. But I honestly think LSU can get this by themselves. Their offense is electric. They are 10 overs in LSU games so far this year. Are 10-0. So I may be a little ambitious with this one, laying 71.5 points, but. I haven't hit a parlay yet, so what's another loss, really? So this has been one of the worst years of college football betting I have had. So 4 legs, plus 12.77, that's on FanDuel, $10 to win $127. It might be a boost. I haven't looked yet, but yeah, that's the 4 that I'm rocking with.
Love it. Tom, we'll move on to you. Run us through your parlay here.
All right, so we're back to 6 legs because why not? What's another loss? Except this one is going to hit. I have Georgia minus 6.5 over Tennessee. Tennessee looked really, really bad last week against Missouri. Georgia beat Missouri. Looking at the way these teams are matched up, Brock Bowers is back, so I like Georgia minus 6.5. That comes in at minus 205. Missouri, speaking of them, I have them at minus 9.5. I think they can take Florida down by multiple scores. Playing it a little safe there, just in case they only win by 10, but I think they should win by at least that. Washington against Oregon State. I know we don't like unders on the show, but I'm taking the under here for Washington, Oregon State. Yes, folks, this is a game that does not include Iowa with the under in it. Under 63.5 clocks in at minus 110. I don't trust Ukulele in big games, and Washington's defense is not too great either. Texas money line minus 280. That's pretty self-explanatory. I forget who they're playing. I think it's Iowa State on the road, so I'm going to rock with them there. UCLA, USC over 65.5 minus 105. Should I say any more? And then this game is not on the card, but Pac-12 matchup: Utah money line on the road against Arizona. Arizona is due to lose one of these games, and Utah is really good at spoiling other teams. I understand Arizona is not in any playoff contention, but I think Utah knocks them off this week.
All right.
And oh, by the way, $10 for 229.79.
I love that we've got dueling picks on Arizona here, so maybe we get a win locked in if it comes down to the wire, and the Arizona-Utah game is the last one left. That'll lock in at least one of us here as a winner. We'll move on to mine here. It is a six-teamer this week. I also went Tommy with the deep card here. I've got Iowa +3 versus Illinois. Sorry, Andy, but I think you guys.
Illinois favored.
No, so I sold points here, and here's my reasoning. I think you guys got all those points out of your system last week. Iowa's defense doesn't let anyone score. Their offense can't score. There might only be 6 points in this entire game. The over-under, I think, was like 31. So if you're getting Iowa +3 here, a field goal, I kind of like that. At least enough to put it on this card. -218. Louisville +3.5 at Miami. Miami just played their toughest game of the season. They played FSU hard, but I think they're going to be exhausted. Louisville, top 10 team in the nation, looking really good. You get them +3.5. That's over a field goal. I think they hold off Miami. SMU versus Memphis, over 61. I also sold a few points here just for safety. We're all trying to get a win here. We've all said it. It's been L's all season long. So I'm just going for a little bit of safety. But to note here, Memphis games, the last 4 have averaged over 86 combined points per game, 86. So that gives you a 25-point buffer there with 2 teams who score a ton of points. That is on our card for later. On the shots and chasers, Georgia -6.5. Like Tom, I sold them down to just under a touchdown. That is -190 against Tennessee. Same reasoning, sort of. They played Missouri, who is very good, I think, still. I picked them to beat Georgia. But, it was a tough game in the first half. They handled them. And then Missouri definitely handled Tennessee. So I think a touchdown is safe for Georgia. Washington +7.5 at Oregon State. You're getting free points here for the number 5 team in the nation. I don't know how they're not favored here. I did buy a few points here down to -297. I don't think Oregon State has the offense to blow out this Washington team. So take a free touchdown. Duke -2.5 at Virginia. Virginia, one of the worst teams in the nation. I know Riley Leonard is still out for Duke. I don't think he's making any miraculous comeback last week, but they have settled in, and I think you can beat Virginia by a field goal if you are Duke. Right on the money here, boys. +1,000, although it did move a little higher as we were moving closer to the show, but it is $10 to win. $110.07. So big money there. I know. That will wrap up our parlays. Hopefully we can lock in our first win of the season here because it is getting late. And speaking of getting late, it's moving us into our last segment. It is, of course, Shots and Chasers, the games of the week. We're starting with the 2 teams with the M logo. We have Maryland taking on number 3 Michigan. Andy, I'll start with you. Do they have a chance, or is this going to be a blowout here?
So we had that segment earlier in the year asking if Maryland was being disrespected by not being ranked after starting 5-0, and they certainly were not because they rattled off 4 straight losses after that, finally getting back in the win column last week with a 13-10 win over Nebraska, and there is just, there's no way they have enough to beat Michigan. I'm sorry. I just wonder if Shamar Moore is going to be crying in the postgame interview this time. Like, that was absolutely fucking pathetic. Crying like Jim Harbaugh died, bro. He's in the fucking hotel room down the street eating popcorn, watching the game. We did this for you, coach. Yeah, we cheated for you, coach. You dumb fuck. But yeah, they're still going to win the game.
Tom, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, look, I don't think Maryland has a shot to win the game. Brian, your prediction about Blake Corum still holds true, by the way. Despite his 18 touchdowns, he is under 800 rushing yards for the season. And we're entering week 12. Roman Wilson against Tar Heaps still is the matchup to watch here. Yeah, I agree with Andy, everything he said about the Shamar Moore and Jim Harbaugh saga. But give me Michigan.
Yeah, I'm taking Michigan as well. I just had to put this one on the card because, with all the news of Harbaugh and the punishment that could be coming down, he might not be there much longer. So this could be, one of the last games of a Michigan-led Jim Harbaugh team because if the punishment is long enough, I know we've talked about it before, but he very well may just pack his bags and head to the NFL. Although the NFL did say that they're not really looking to have coaches do that and avoid punishment. But I mean, what are they going to do? Suspend him for 2 games in the NFL, and then everything will be back to normal. So yeah, I think Michigan wins pretty handily here. But the interesting stat that I did see from across the pond, Michigan did not throw a single pass in the second half against Penn State, which is super impressive because the game, it wasn't a huge blowout or anything. Their O-line, it was just dominating the game and opening the holes there for their run game.
They didn't try to throw. Technically they attempted one pass, but it was pass interference or something, so it didn't count. But
Okay.
yeah, it's just embarrassing.
So
the
refs were on it.
The refs were on it. I mean, it's just embarrassing for Penn State to just get punked like that on your home fucking field. Like James Franklin, I think it's time for him to go. But I mean, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I wonder what his buyout is at Penn State. But yeah, I mean, we don't need to go deep into the stats here. They've got one of the best quartets here in J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, and Roman Wilson. I mean, that's going to destroy Maryland's defense here. And then on the defensive side, you got the trio of Harrell, Stewart, and Moore on your defensive line, combined for 74 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, and 13 sacks. Yeah, Tali is not going to have much time. He's going to be under a lot of pressure, and I don't think they're going to be able. Maybe they hold him for like the first half. They're not the worst team there in the conference, but I think this could get ugly pretty fast. I guess it depends on how many of Maryland's signs they stole last year. But that'll move us into the chaser, the game that was on my card, because I think everyone does need to have this on. This is going to be an offensive explosion here. We have some AAC action, Memphis versus SMU. Andy, who's your pick for this one?
Is it acceptable just to give out the over? Because just give me the points. I mean, there's two teams that are putting up 40 points a game, 480 yards of offense for the Ponies, and 460 for Memphis. I mean, these are two really good teams. They come in at 8-2 and 2nd and 4th in the American Athletic Conference, respectively. SMU has won 6 straight. Their only losses are to Oklahoma and TCU. Memphis only has 2 losses. Their only 2 losses are to Missouri, who's really good, and to Tulane, who's having a really good year as well. So I'm gonna give me SMU. Give me SMU. Memphis at home. That is tough, but give me the Ponies.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, as Andy mentioned, SMU, the Mustangs are hot right now. I mean, it's all Preston Stone and what he's been able to do this year. The fact that he has 2 capable running backs, he's able to buy more time and make plays down the field. It's never a from the stand show without mentioning tight end RJ Maryland. 6 touchdowns on just 25 catches this year. Again, outsiders may question me why I'm obsessed with tight ends. Well, you can catch 8 passes and have like 5 touchdowns. I think that's what's so special about that position. Seth Hennigan is another solid quarterback for Memphis, almost 2,900 passing yards. He had 5 touchdowns last week. He was phenomenal. Blake Watson on the ground is a stud. 12 touchdowns, closing in on 1,000 yards. He's able to make people miss an open space. And then they have 2 very capable receivers, each of them over 650 yards on the season. So, yeah, this will be an offensive juggernaut. But ultimately, I will side with Andy here. I do think SMU wins the game. I think the question here more is the spread.
Yeah, Andy, to answer your question, it's very acceptable to just tell everyone to watch for the over here, because that was basically my take on this game as well. But yeah, two really great offenses. This is what I loved about the AAC. I'm glad we're in a P5 conference now, talking about UCF, of course, but this conference was so fun when we were in it. Both QBs, Preston Stone there for SMU and Seth Hennigan for Memphis, both in the top 15 in the nation in TD passes with 23 and 22 respectively, both with over 2,500 passing yards. Hennigan's a little more accurate, but I really don't know how much that matters in a matchup like this, where you might see 90 to 100 points on the board because the defenses just have so many holes in them. Even though Stone, I think, is throwing it's like 59%, which is super low, and typically I'd hate that. I think that's perfectly fine here. I'm taking SMU though, specifically because of the shocking lack of defense on Memphis. It's been absolutely brutal lately. They've allowed 43.5 points. Over 43.5 points over the last 3 games. That is 5th worst in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, there's over 130 teams in the nation, and there's only 4 that are worse than this Memphis defense. Yeah, SMU, they've had a good run, and I get to pair their passing attack, like Tom said, with a good running duo here, which is also ranked 20th in the nation. I think they're the more complete team, so I think they get the win here. Moving into the 3:30 slot, we have Georgia versus Tennessee, a ranked matchup, but one is on the rise, one is falling. Andy, I'll start with you. Do the Vols have a chance here against the nation's #1 team?
No, absolutely not. I just don't know how they're going. I mean, I know they're at home. It's going to be a raucous crowd. Give them a little bit there, but I mean, they're giving up 360 yards of offense per game. Georgia's averaging 510. I mean, you look back at compare what these teams have done. I mean, even if you look the last week, look what Missouri just did to Tennessee. Week before that, Missouri hung with Georgia for 90% of the game. I mean, Tennessee got beat by Alabama by 14. I mean, just imagine what Georgia's going to do to them. So, yeah, give me the Bulldogs.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, look, Carson Beck has improved week after week. He has his best weapon back with Brock Bowers. Beck now over 3,000 yards on the season. Tennessee's coming off that brutal loss to Missouri, which I think all three of us picked on the show last week, third being Noah. Joe Milton III has very few weapons for the Vols. The one challenge, though, in this game for Georgia could be the Vols' defense. If you are betting this game, folks, and you're watching us, I would not recommend taking the over. It could hit, but I would avoid it because both defenses are solid. But give me Georgia outright and to cover 10-point spread.
Yeah, for me, I'm taking Georgia as well. They jump Ohio State for #1 in the nation. I think that's probably well deserved. I mean, it doesn't matter at this point, but I mean, I personally would give it to Georgia, so no qualms there. Meanwhile, Tennessee just got an absolute beatdown from Missouri, a team I really like right now, and that's a team that, like I said, hung around with Georgia at least for the first half, almost through the first 3 quarters, and even when they started to pull away, it didn't look really bad. Listen, Brock Bowers. Tom, you didn't mention it. He's reportedly ready to be back for this week. So there's your tight end news for this game. That's just another weapon that Tennessee's going to have to deal with, and they're not going to be able to deal with here. Most importantly, on the road here, Georgia this year averaging 36 points per game still, and 486 yards of offense on the road. That is actually better than how Tennessee performs at home, averaging 39 points per game and just 424 yards of offense. So when your road game is better than your opponent's home game, I think, when you're the #1 team in the nation, you're probably going to handle them pretty well. And then the embarrassing stat of the day for this one, to make matters worse, Tennessee just super undisciplined under Josh Heupel. The Volunteers ranked dead last, 130th in penalties when they play at home this season, averaging 9 penalties per game. So that's just too many yards to give up when you already need to stick with the team that's going to beat you up. So I'm taking the Bulldogs here as well. Next up, in the 3:30 chaser, we have Air Force taking on UNLV. Two programs that are doing really well, but they do have some losses that they've suffered recently, including Air Force, who has lost their last 2. Andy, who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is the 1 versus 2 in the Mountain West. Two really good programs. One of UNLV's losses being a 35-7 loss at Michigan early in the year, which you can't really blame them for. I think Fresno State clipped them a couple weeks ago. But Air Force, 8-0 start. They were ranked, kind of reeling right now, right? 2 losses in a row. Their first 8 games, they were averaging 33 points a game. This past 2 weeks, they've scored 3 and 13 points. So something's got to change with this Falcon offense. And I don't know if it happens versus UNLV. I think UNLV is a very good team, and I think they come in and I think they win this game.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, just to piggyback for a second, I did mention Bowers in the last segment. I don't know if you guys did hear that. But no,
100%.
Called out for that. Just wanted to.
That's on me.
UNLV runs all good. So when I look at this game, Air Force -3, UNLV runs a lot. They got 3 guys over 400 yards. But what they also have is Ricky White, who's a 1,000-yard receiver this season. Defensively, they're solid. Jackson Woodard patrols the second level of that defense. He fills the A and B gaps. Air Force is on a 2-game losing streak after starting off 8-0, so that concerns me a little bit. But they're so dominant running the football. Emmanuel's been a rocket for them this year. Zach Larrier at quarterback is very solid. They execute that triple option very well. John Lee Aldridge III. You know what? Yeah, Air Force is favored by 3 for a reason. So I'm going to go with the Falcons here on this one.
Yeah, for me, I kind of wish both of these teams here had 1 less loss each. It would have given us a sneaky look into, like a 19 versus 22 matchup. with two, like we said, programs that are on the rise and do still very well despite the two losses each. But yeah, Air Force was just on an absolute heater with that 8-0 start to the season. They have since obviously dropped those last two. The one notable thing is that this is a team that likes to run. They were leading the nation the last time we talked about them in rushing yards per game. They have since fallen, I know, down to second place. Just completely disappointed. But they're behind a team that we talked about earlier, who I don't think we've talked about at all. Besides earlier this show, that is Liberty, who now leads the nation in rushing at 278 yards per game. So, Air Force, we still know that run game is there. I'm joking, of course, that they have fallen. Their fall from grace in the rushing game. It's really not that bad. But they still heavily outscore their opponents in the second half. I do like UNLV. They're having a great run. Their only losses are to Michigan and Fresno State. Obviously, Michigan, a very good team. Fresno State, also a good team in their own right. And Maeva, he looks just as dangerous as he has all season on the ground. So this is kind of like the Memphis SMU one for me. I just hope it's a fun game to watch. But I think Air Force, I think, is just they're too grounded in their game plan right now. And UNLV this is like the first time they've ever been good. So I think that's why they're a little shaky and have taken on some of these losses. So I'm gonna go with Air Force mainly because I think they've got the game plan that they can operate in a more reasonable fashion here under their coaching staff. Moving into 7:30, we have probably the top ranked matchup of the week, I guess. And it is an interesting one because actually the higher ranked team is not the favorite this week. It is Oregon State taking on number 5 Washington. Andy, I'll start with you. Who do you like in this one?
Well, a lot of the times when I look at a line, it doesn't make sense to me. I take the opposite of it because I'm like, well, there's no way. Like, oh, you're gonna give me Washington at plus money? Like, what am I, an idiot? Yes. As my good friend Tom Scavetta likes to say, the Beavers are favored for a reason, folks. I think they win. Like, would technically be an upset, but not. I think Washington is kind of due for a loss. I know they're 10-0. They've won 10 straight. Oregon State feeling good about themselves coming off hanging 62 points on Stanford. Do we trust DJ in big games? I don't know. But give me the Beavers here. And I could be very wrong, but when I see a line that doesn't make sense, I tell myself all the time, you need to take it, and then I talk myself out of it because what can I say? I'm a plus sign prince. I love the plus sign.
All right, Tom, who are you taking in this one?
Well, when we evaluate this game, Michael Penix Jr. leads the nation in passing, and I agree with about 99% of what Andy just said. I think Dylan is a scat back in the backfield, and Roma Dunze and Jalen Polk are two outstanding receivers. Now, the Beavers have 2 losses to Washington State and Arizona, but man, are they good. Damian Martinez in the backfield is phenomenal. They have 5 defenders with 2 interceptions. I could see Penix throwing a pick in this game for sure. Andrew Chatfield with 9 sacks. That Washington offensive line is going to get destroyed. However, that 2.5 is very, very tempting. And as I'm thinking this through here, I want to take Oregon State, but Ukulele is the quarterback, and I will not pick him. I just don't trust him to do it. So I'm going against my own advice here, and I'm going the other way. I'm taking Washington to improve to 11-0.
You talked yourself into your own pick, and then the presence of DJ existing talked you out of that pick, as tends to happen. I feel like there's a few quarterbacks that do that to us. Yeah, for me, I don't agree with Vegas's take here. I know Washington has struggled. I know Corvallis is a really tough place to play on the road, even if you're the number 5 team in the nation. Yeah, DJ's been quietly productive for Oregon State. We talked about it earlier in this season. He's been a pretty good fit there. He's definitely molded better to this program than he did to Clemson. He's been, a little cold and calculated with this team that has. It's weird to say they have lower expectations. It's maybe disrespectful, but I think there's less pressure than he had when he was at Clemson. And then he's got a 1,000-yard rusher and Damian Martinez to help him. Yeah, I really don't care that Washington's been shaky of late. You got to get the wins, and they're getting the wins. Despite the fact that some of these games are coming down to the wire. I think this game will also come down to the wire. But I think they've survived in the past. I think they survived this game as well. I think Vegas is wrong here. And like you said, they've got Adunze and Polk. Both guys have over 50 catches. I don't think Oregon State, they got a good defense. I don't think they're going to be able to contain both of them all game long. Yeah, I know everyone is all over Oregon State. The line for this actually started at Washington -1.5, and it's moved quite a bit here the other way. But I think everyone is wrong because I think Tom is right when he says you cannot trust DJ. So I'm going with the Huskies to improve to 11-0 as well. And that'll move us into our last game here on the card. We have the matchup of the Kansas boys, Kansas versus Kansas State. Always a fun one here for the Big 12. Andy, I'll start with you. Who's taking this one?
This is the first time in 28 years that this is a ranked matchup, boys. We're witnessing history. Also just found out that this is called the Sunflower Showdown, and they are playing for the Governor's Cup. And it's one of the oldest rivalries in college football. They've played each other every year for over 100 years, which is crazy. But I've gotten burned by Kansas a few times this year. I mean, it's cool to see them at 7-3 as a football program because they literally never are this good. But still, they've kind of fucked me a couple times. So this is a vengeance pick for me. I'm taking Kansas State. I know they're on the road. I think 7.5 is a big spread, especially in a rivalry game like this. But man, I don't know. Just give me the Wildcats. That's all I'll say.
All right, Tom.
I actually don't think it's a big spread, especially with Jason Bean in concussion protocol. They're in line to start their third-string QB, Cole Ballard.
That I didn't know.
Who was atrocious last week. So I think Andy's onto something here without even knowing it. Will Howard is splitting time with Avery Johnson, yes, but he's still the quarterback. He's a dual threat. I mean, DJ Giddens is phenomenal. I really like their running game, and then Phillip Brooks is a guy who creates good separation when running routes along the boundaries. He's good. He's good with the toe tap as well. I've noticed a few times. And Ben Sinnott. I mean, I am flabbergasted by this guy. I want my pro team to draft him. That's how much I like him. He can block. He can catch. He can. How many times is a blocking tight end have over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns? I mean, that's pretty freaking good. Their defense is solid. Yes, Kansas is the most confusing team to figure out this year for me. They beat Oklahoma, but they lose to Texas Tech. I just don't get them at all. So there's really not much for me left to break down here. Kansas State owns this rivalry, and while I do like the Jayhawks defense, there are players on there. I think the Wildcats will win this one, and I think Andy is right here. I'm going with Kansas State.
Yeah, I agree basically with how Andy described the Kansas program last year as well, but definitely this year. They lull you into a false sense of security, kind of with just because of how fun they are to watch. Bean has been fun to watch, but like Tom said, he's out, so everything is on Devin Neal's back this week, and he's a phenomenal runner, but you can't do it all. And this is really not the team in the Big 12 that you want to have most of your game plan focused on the run game, because Kansas State is very good at the run stop. So Neal is good enough to break off some big runs here. But I don't think it's enough to put up a ton of points. Kansas State's defense is very good. They kept TCU to 3 points. They shut out Houston recently. And then, they did give up 33 points to Texas, but they ended up taking them to overtime. This is a very good Texas team. I think they're number 7 right now. That game was just 2 weeks ago. So, they're running on all cylinders. I think they're the better team in this matchup, and I think they do win this rivalry game. I think it's the purple. This Wildcats team, the silver and purple, late in the season, they just pull off the ranked wins. So I'm going Wildcats as well here. That'll wrap up the Shots and Chasers, the games of the week, as well as our show. I am so happy to be back. And
Good to have you back, Brad Guy.
Thank you, you guys, and so thankful to these guys who held the fort down last week. That is Mr. Andy Hopper to my left and Mr. Tom Scavetta to my right. Be sure to check out their links in the description. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and go do it on their channels as well. Enjoy the action for Week 12, and we'll see everybody back here for the Week 13 action next week.